In 2009, Mark Edgar Koster was reported as a missing person. And in November of 2012, as you guys know, he was found buried in his basement. After that point in time, the case was worked diligently by the Sac City Police Department and the Division of Criminal Investigation here in the state of Iowa. After that point in time and up until this last week, law enforcement felt that it had all the information that it needed, had a solid case against an individual who has since been arrested for Mark Koster's death, and that's John David Green. As you already know also, the Sac City Police Department Division of Criminal Investigation went to Florida, presented this evidence to John David Green, confronted him, and again, as you already know from the complaint, John David Green admitted to killing Mark Koster. There's not a lot that we can tell you above and beyond that or what's not already in the complaint. What we can tell you is that law enforcement never gave up, and probably the most important thing is that the family now has closure. This case is in the infancy of, I guess, its legal proceedings. The state has the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that John David Green killed Mark Koster. An indictment has yet to be filed. We anticipate that being filed at the end of this week, early next week. And with that, I would field questions. The officers could field questions, but again, there's just some things that we can't not discuss because it is important to John David Green and our legal system that he does receive a fair trial. So with that being said, is there any questions?
How'd they know each other?
I think that's something that the chief can answer. I don't think that's...
Yeah, back in the 80s, they both worked in Ponder, Texas at a convenience store, and that's where they met.
What led to the altercation?
That's something that we're not at liberty to discuss at this time.
As far as the missing persons investigation, was a lot done since, I mean, he's an adult?
Actually, and you know, maybe DCI can speak to this, but I know just from seeing the reports, having seen multiple missing persons report, this probably was one of the more better worked missing persons cases. Especially considering the fact that Mark Koster did have, from what we were told, the propensity to just pick up and leave. Even in light of that, the officers in this case, Sac City Police Department, Division of Criminal Investigation, worked it diligently, collecting DNA evidence, executing a search warrant. So in the end, that did account for. It was good. It was good evidence to have. So,
Where'd you execute that search warrant? What was that for?
Search warrant for Mark Koster's home. I believe
okay.
That was in 2010.
How'd you identify Green, or how quickly after the remains were discovered did you identify Green as a possible suspect?
I think a timeline we can give, not exactly how we got to that point, but would you say?
I would say it took us a couple of months to really make it solid that he was our lead suspect.
Can you elaborate on how you figured out it was him?
Just from several interviews with family and friends.
And if I haven't introduced, I made the mistake of not introducing. My name is Ben Smith. I'm the county attorney here in Sac County. Chief of Police here in Sac City, Mark Jansma. The assistant, excuse me. Promotion. Chief of Police, John Thompson, Assistant Chief of Police, Mark Jansma. DCI Special Agent in Charge, Mitch Morbed. DCI Special Agent in the back, he's not up here, is Trent Valletta. A lot of Marks and Johns in this, we figured out the other day, so you have to excuse me if we get a little confused with the names.
Can you say how long you tracked Green for, how you tracked him, and through what states?
Can't say. I will say that As far as tracking, what do you mean by tracking?
Well, I mean, you obviously knew that he was in different states, so how did you figure that out?
Without getting into specifics, we used the best modern technology that we had available to us and a little bit of, I suppose you could call it social engineering, but that...
And the assistance of several police departments across several states.
And that is important to note also. This isn't you know, something that was accomplished just by the people sitting here at this table. This was a number of agents from the Division of Criminal Investigation, DCI, you know, Sac City Police Department. Eventually in the end, I think that there was the North Carolina Bureau of Investigation assisted and came through with a huge interview. The Kansas City, was it the Metropolitan Police Department? The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, I believe the Florida, they call it Department of Law Enforcement, their special agents would be the contemporaries of the DCI here in Iowa, and Orange, I want to say it's Orange Park, Sheriff's Department down in Florida also. So I mean, this is something that was worked extensively. It was very involved, and I believe, and law enforcement would tell you, and I've seen firsthand, is put together a solid case, and don't take these things lightly. We just don't file charges on a whim. So,
I mean, was it bank records, or can you be any more specific at all about how you track
Just
them?
current technology.
Okay.
You know, and I'd also say, along with the current technology, that good old-fashioned police
Yeah.
work by the Sac City Police Department
And DCI.
and our agents with the DCI and our Division of Intelligence as well. You know, the county attorney alluded to the fact of several interviews that taken place, not only here locally in Sac City and in Sac County, but you know, in the Kansas City area. And as you interview people, you get more information, and it just kind of builds on that, along with the modern technology component by all means. So.
As far as the apprehension of Green, we've heard that he hasn't fought any legal processes so far. Have you found that to be so?
yeah, I believe that within his first appearance in Florida, he waived extradition almost immediately. And there really hasn't been a whole lot that's happened here. As I stated earlier, the indictment or the trial information, we plan to file later this week, early next week. So
And he came quietly?
he came very quietly, actually. So
Is the trial information going to have any different charges than what we've seen so far?
I anticipate filing the charge filed by law enforcement, which is the Class A felony murder, and yet to be determined, but probable obstruction of justice or obstruction of prosecution for the other component of that criminal complaint, which was, I think towards the very end, the making it look as if Mark Koster had left. And we can't get any more details as to that, but I do anticipate filing some form of additional obstruction charge.
As far as a motive, I mean, I know that they got in a fight, but you said that in speaking with family members, it became clear that he was a suspect. Do you have any idea maybe what led up to the fight or anything?
And we just can't say at this time, so, in all fairness.
Through how many towns did you, or cities did you track him before you caught up with him?
I think probably states would be easier.
Yeah, all right, 4 states,
Multiple towns in each state?
multiple. Yeah.
And I don't think it was ever a matter of, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, but I think that always finding John Green wasn't as important as collecting all the evidence and making sure all the I's were dotted, T's were crossed before you went down, before law enforcement went down and confronted them with what they had. And I think that's probably one of the more important parts, which led to ultimately his admissions.
You found him at a casino in Florida?
Ken Poker Council, yeah.
Okay. What was he doing there?
I would imagine gambling.
Yeah.
He was there gambling.
You didn't pull him away from a high hand, did you?
No, we caught up to him in his vehicle.
You know, obviously he's he's claiming it was self-defense in some fashion, I'm assuming. What, you know, what led you to not take him at his word on that?
Well, I don't want to get into the self-defense aspect of it. As you pointed out, it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or even a lawyer to know that that's probably going to be maybe something that he raises as an affirmative defense. It's clear from the complaint. As to the other part of the question, at this time we can't speak as to specifics.
Wait, was that a dirt floor in the basement of that house that he was buried in?
Yes.
Okay. And early on, if I remember right, it was just bones that were found, or was it? Can you describe the body at all?
I think I'll describe it as it was described in the criminal complaint, which was just badly decomposed. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay. Was it wrapped in anything, or was it just straight in the
We
dirt?
don't want to say at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Green's here now in jail, right?
Yes.
How do you transport him?
Sac City Police Department actually had follow-up interviews and other parts of their investigation they were continuing in Florida when DCI came back on I think the Wednesday prior to his extradition, and Sac City Police Department, these two guys actually did transport him back.
Drove him back or flew him back?
Flew.
Yeah.
Is he in the Sac County Jail is where he's at, or?
Yes, sir.
So you said earlier that it was more important to gather evidence rather than to get him right away. Did you hold off while you gathered more information before you picked him up, or did you pick him up as soon as you knew?
Oh, no, I think there was probably about 2 weeks from the time that, you know, his exact location was pinpointed, and he wasn't ever picked up. He was just asked to, you know, to maybe answer some questions, and that's what he did. But you're talking about, you know, somebody who, you know, has lived, you know, in a number of different states, trying to coordinate with 2 or 3 law enforcement agencies in a matter of days, knowing that at any point in time he could cross state lines. So that 2-week window between the time that his location was fairly definitive and when he was confronted was actually a pretty short amount of time for law enforcement to work within.
And considering the fact that multiple states had to be, you know, or multiple officers were traveling and making those travel arrangements through their respective departments and such, it took quite a bit of coordination, and there was a lot of cooperation that the Sac City Police Department and the DCI agents received from those out-of-state agencies to assist with, you know, with a crime ultimately that did not happen in any of their jurisdictions. So we were forever grateful for their support, you know, in lending a hand in all those different jurisdictions.
Was Green, you've been describing him as like a transient. Is that an accurate way to describe him? Was he?
He had a vehicle and a camper,
Okay.
so he just drove around.
And he just lived in his camper?
He actually has his driver's license, and I believe that during his interview he gave Georgia an address that comes back to his driver's license. So
Okay.
he did have a place that, you know,
An official residence.
Yeah.
In Florida, right?
In
Or-
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia, okay.
Yeah, and if I didn't mention this earlier, again, this is the beginning proceedings. Mr. John David Green is innocent until proven guilty. The state has a very, very high burden of proof, and it's a very serious charge. This is just the beginning, and the reason why we don't speak as to a lot of these things is we want to afford him that opportunity. Also, at the same time, acknowledging that there are certain things that the public is entitled to know. But again, can't stress enough that it's very important that he be given the benefit of the doubt, which our legal system affords everybody, fortunately. So.
One more question. Did you guys find the baseball bat?
I can't speak as to that.
Okay.
Has he had his initial appearance already, or is that still to happen?
My understanding is that he did have his initial appearance. He was brought before the magistrate, I believe the Saturday, which would have been within 24 hours following his incarceration here in the jail, which is required by law. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I know that the State Public Defender's Office has contacted me. They will be representing him. I believe the Fort Dodge PD Public Defender's Office.
Okay.
So,
Who is that? Remind me again.
Charles Kenville,
Okay.
I believe, is who contacted me.
Has the judge been assigned to this?
No judge yet to be assigned. And there's no telling whether a judge will be assigned. I think that they do. Maybe that's a rule. I don't know.
Are you gonna ask the AG's office to help you prosecute?
Yes,
this?
I have. Thank you. I have reached out for the third time in as many years to Doug Hammeran, Assistant Attorney General, who has already offered assistance as well as did other law enforcement agencies. Bounced quite a few things off of him up to this point, so he will be here assisting, probably in a very large capacity.
Why does all the crime happen in Sac County?
People say this a lot. I don't think that, if you look at the things that have happened the last 3-4 years here, they're not people that live here. The first one was 10 years old. This one, 4 or 5 years old. And, the other one involving the 11 from early, that was just what it was. But Kirk Levin wasn't from here. John David Green, the suspect, the defendant in this case, is not from here. Tracy Richter wasn't from here. So Sac County is a great place. It's a great place to live, and I think that looking at it as there being a lot more crime in this county, I think that the law enforcement, and I'm not just saying this, is probably, and I feel, is more aggressive, which necessarily puts these sorts of things in the limelight. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's the take that I have. So.
Hey, what was Green? Do you know what his job was down? What he was doing for a job?
I don't know for sure, and I don't think we can say at this time even if we did.
Sure.
Have you discovered any patterns of violence or anything while they're investigating this? Anything else that would indicate whether or not this is the only time something like
We
this
can't
has happened?
speak as to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can't answer that. Any more questions or? All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
folks.
guys.
Thank you.